the sea, and over the wild blinded flow. On the ocean as he sails upon high, it's just like a bird on the wing. And when the shadows of evening grow nigh, he'll stand to my window and sing. Come take a trip in my airship.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 67 of the Airship 27 podcast. I'm Chief Engineer Rob Davis, here virtually alongside my co-host, Captain Ron Fortier.
Hey, greetings, loyal airmen, and welcome to another Madcap and Wild Hour up in the wild blue yonders with me and Chief Engineer Rob. And hey, folks, I have got the responsibility of starting with the bad joke of the month. I hope you're all ready for this one, okay? This one is going to be a public service announcement, Rob. All right?
No.
Oh,
okay.
Definitely. In the light of rising frequency of human grizzly bear encounters, the Colorado Department of Fish and Game is advising all hikers, hunters, and fishermen to take extra precautions and keep alert for bears while in the field. Now, this is the statement they've posted. We advise that outdoorsmen wear noisy little bells on their clothing so as not to startle the bears that aren't expecting them. We also advise outdoorsmen to carry a little pepper spray with them in the case of an encounter with a bear. It is also a good idea to watch out for fresh signs of bear activity. Outdoorsmen should recognize the differences between black bear and grizzly bear poop. Black bear poop is smaller and contains a lot of berries and squirrel fur. Grizzly bear poop has little bells in it and smells like peppers.
I was waiting for the next thing that you were going to suggest is be sure to take along a person who can run less fast than you can.
I had a couple, which is like I think you do. We both grabbed a couple, and I ran a couple of these past Valerie, and this was the one that won out. It's good, so you can figure how bad the others were.
Oh man. Oh Lordy.
Amen.
Okay.
All right, hey, I'll let you take the first agenda
right.
on a somber note.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
There we go.
Hasn't that been 2020 so far? Okay. Farewell, Charles Saunders. It would appear 2020 continues to deliver one bad thing after another. We recently learned of the passing away of Charles Saunders, one of the great fantasy adventure writers of our times. Born in Pennsylvania in 1946, Saunders moved to Canada in the late 1960s, where his writing career took off. Fascinated with his own African heritage, he created the Black Warrior Imaro and saw his adventures published in half a dozen Daw paperback books in the 1970s. He eventually moved to Nova Scotia, where he became an editorial writer for a local newspaper while continuing his fiction writing. Heavily influenced by the works of J.R.R. Tolkien and Robert E. Howard, Saunders is credited with creating hybrid sword and soul genre, and for the past decade working closely with Atlanta publisher Milton Davis. Airship 27 Productions plans on continuing Saunders' legacy by launching two of his original characters in their own series. The first, Damballa, will be written by Pulp Factory Award winner Derek Ferguson, and Lulama will be written by the previously mentioned Milton Davis. Charles's legacy will forever be an inspiration to future generations of Black writers.
Right. A good friend, a really, really good friend. And we knew each other. I think we hooked up, it must have been around 1969, Rob, when I came out of the Army. And you want to talk about a unique kind of friendship, okay? We belonged to a writing club, a correspondent writing club, if you will, for the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, maybe a good 50, 60 members. And we all
Wow.
connected by writing letters and eventually publishing a little newsletter or whatever. And when Charles and I hit it off, Charles was aware of my military, right, because I just
Yeah.
been home for about a year.
Yeah.
And he wrote me personally one day and very much up front said, well, I hope, we can still be friends. He says, I personally, as a Black American, didn't feel consciously right about, being drafted. I thought the war was illegal and I didn't want to have any part of it. And so he fled to Canada. He became a draft dodger. Okay.
Yeah.
And I can remember reading that and thinking to myself, well, dear God in heaven, why on earth did I even put on the uniform and take the oath if it wasn't to guarantee this country and its liberties and a person's right to do what his heart and soul tells him is right? All
Yep.
right. Wrote back to Charles, told him I thought he was a man of great conviction and courage. To give up his own country for what he believed, I know very few people who could do that. All right.
Yeah.
He later applied for Canadian citizenship and spent the rest of his life in Canada. Had the opportunity to meet him. Valerie and I flew to Canada, to Ottawa, spent a couple of weeks with him and some other Canadian friends up there. Huge man, almost 7 feet tall. When Valerie and I came off the plane, he literally picked her up, all right, off her feet. She laughed and said something to the effect of, this hasn't happened to me since I was a little girl and met Santa at the local Christmas store and sat on his lap. So Charles said he was the Southern Santa from the South Pole. Okay. And would always joke about her whenever we corresponded and talked and whatever. He's a great guy. I have an addendum to this, and plus another little something that wasn't in the agenda, Rob. A postscript that comes from Milton Davis of
Okay.
MV Media. In honor of Charles Saunders' life and legacy, MV Media, Roaring Lions Productions, Sword and Soul Media, and others are joining forces to establish the Charles R. Saunders Award. This award will recognize Black authors of sword and soul and African fantasy. Our goal is to make our first presentation in 2021. Stay tuned for more details. I applaud that. Bravo to
Yep.
Milton and all these other
Yep.
publishers. I think it's a great thing. It deserves to happen in some exchanges with Milton because, as I've mentioned before, we believe Charles passed away sometimes in May. He had no surviving family and relatives. And so word of his passing was somehow really slow getting out.
Yeah. Well.
Right. So we're all still trying to find out, like cause of death or the circumstances or whatever. And one thing that Milton did come across, which I wanted to mention here, because some of our loyal airmen will probably be seeing posts of this later on Facebook from Milton and myself and other people. But because of that fact of no connecting, relatives or whatever, apparently the city that he lived in took care of his remains, and he's actually buried in an unmarked grave.
Oh
And
my.
yeah, in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. That being the case, Milton and others are planning on starting a GoFundMe project
Yeah.
to have a headstone made with his name and dates and whatever. Again, I will be posting that when I get the information on my Facebook page. I'll share it with you and anybody else who wants to help us. Okay.
Yeah.
The thought of this wonderful, wonderful human being passing away alone without anybody still bothers me. It still hurts me, but I know he's in a much better place, and I hope someday to see my old friend again. So there you go. All right, I'll let you go on to a little better news.
Okay.
Please.
Anything could be better news. Welcome back, Radio Archives. As many of you loyal airmen will recall, at the start of the year, Radio Archives was getting close to having all the Airship 27 books done as audio recordings. With our irregular pacing for releases, it looked like they would soon have them all done. Then they entered into contracts with another company to produce tons of great classic hero pulp magazines such as The Phantom Detective, G8, Secret Agent X, and others. Now, that was great news for us pulp fans who love those old classic stories, but the deal came with a deadline, and Radio Archives had to have all the stories done by the start of September.
Oh,
Can you imagine?
Tom Brown was running around like crazy, as I recall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're doing, and it takes quite a while to record stuff. Wow. Okay. The only way they could do that was to push all other projects onto the back burners, including the remaining Airship 27 titles they had not yet done. So I guess you can say this lull in their recording our stuff gave us a chance to add a little more inventory to that list. As of last Friday, the 18th Radio Archives, as of last Friday, the 18th,
September 18th, right?
Yeah, September 18th, Radio Archives is back doing our books, and they kicked it off with Ravenwood, Stepson of Mystery, Volume 4. Honestly, we're thrilled to see them once again producing these books, as they do audio books better than anyone else in the business. So again, welcome back, Radio Archives.
We were so used to their knocking out our titles one a week. Every Friday morning, the Radio Archives newsletter would go out, and I'm sure lots of you loyal airmen have that newsletter coming to you. And then all of a sudden, it was like, you went from feast to famine, and there were none there. And I think when they stopped doing our titles, they had maybe 5 of ours left to do. Mm-hmm. So in that interim period over the summer, we've actually produced at least another 4 or 5 or whatever. So we got the number up a little bit more. And I think the last time you and I spoke with Tom Brown, their head honcho, I think they're going to be doing them sporadically now, like one every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what he said, but yeah.
So hey, we got to get some more books out there. Okay,
right,
fans.
Right.
Hey, we got it. So, that gets us to release since our last show. Okay. So this month, we seem to prove the old up and down theory of life as a roller coaster. Yep. What with releasing 3 titles in October, production then came to a screeching halt.
August text.
Excuse me. Right. Yeah.
You're rushing things here, Ron.
Here we go. All right. What year is this, Rob? I mean,
I'm wishing 2022, but unfortunately it's 2020.
So let me recap. Well, what we're releasing 3 titles in August. Production came to a screeching halt here in September. Uh-huh. And even though we have 2 titles that are really, really close to getting out, the final elements just haven't happened yet. Here's our one and only book in September. Okay, I'm going to read Barry Baskerville's Christmas Mystery. This is our 7th entry into the children's book series by writer Richard Kellogg about the boy who wants to be Sherlock Holmes. Mm-hmm. As ever, all the amazing color illustrations were rendered by artist Gary Cotto, this being some of Gary's finest work on the series to date. If you have young readers in your family, you really need to find these books for them. They're all available at Amazon and also on Kindle.
Right.
Part of the reason the books are at times slow to get out is that old song you've already heard time and time again, as we repeat it practically every episode, and I'll let Rob pick that up. Go ahead, Rob. Let him have it one more time.
All right. For the 1.5 millionth times, we still need interior illustrators.
Please, we're begging you.
No, anybody. Okay, at present, we have at least 2 completed anthologies, Mars McCoy Space Ranger Volume 3 and the Purple Scar Volume 4, ready to go once we find artists to do the illustrations for them. Never mind the 6 or 7 full-length novels also awaiting such artwork. So please, loyal airmen, if you know of any talented artists looking to do some fun stuff and willing to work for peanuts, I know that sounds horrible, but that's what we pay, peanuts. But we do have a lot of fun. At the same time, do send them our way. Oh, please. Send them our way.
They got to
I
catch the
stumbled over
fact
that
that we've been drinking before the show, obviously.
Oh
And
my,
you
yeah.
know what? You know what? Just honest to God, it's just, look, Rob and I truly get the situation, and we understand what freelance, artwork is all about. Rob has done it, for
Yeah.
most of his life as a career and as a profession, and I've worked with many artists over my own career as a writer, and we do empathize with the situations they're in, and
We
the
get it.
the impossible thing we're asking. Just, I mean,
Yeah.
look, today, one of the new artists who had hoped to work with us and came on board at the start of the year messaged me on Facebook and had to bow out.
Yep.
It became
Uh-huh.
impossible.
Yep.
He's struggling to find work. He's getting sporadic commissions, paying gigs every now and then, but just not enough to where he can take time off to do what we do, for us. And as we said, we're a back end deal. We'll share the profits that we make, but we're a little outfit. Our sales are meager at best, and so that's what we
Yep.
share. And uh, again, not to decry this, because a lot of people say, well, why do you even bother? Well, two reasons for this. Okay, the first one is that we wanted to pay homage to the classic pulp magazines, and they all had interior illustrations. So that was the beginning of Airship 27 when Robert, joined on and took on the assignment as art director, that we would, as best we could, honor those classic pulp magazines. And it's helped us produce some really beautiful books, those interior illustrations and the artists we get on board. Okay, so that being the case, we've established over the last decade or so a tradition of what Airship 27 books are, and the second half of that, it's what our readers expect from us. Okay, so to start all of a sudden say, okay, no, we're just going to do covers, there's a part of me that thinks that we'd be letting down people who've supported us and helped us get to where we are today. And I really don't want to do that if we don't have to.
I'm with you. It also is why it took us so long to get to the point where we were doing Kindle versions of our book. Because when we first started, and I'm still doing all the design work and such and conversions. At first, I had a heck of a time getting those the illustrations to insert into the Kindle versions.
Oh,
So
I
it
can
took
imagine.
it took a
Yeah.
while, and now I've got it where it works pretty well. Sometimes it takes longer to assemble the Kindle version than it does the print version.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
sometimes 2 and 3 times as much effort goes into that. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
but 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 at the same time, I didn't want us to just send out a text version of our books in Kindle because that was not what we were about. We're
Right.
about having those illustrations in there, so I wanted those in there as well. And finally got that worked out. It works better with in some books than others, but for the most part, they are in there and they're right where they're supposed to be. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
you know what? Yeah, and this is a good as time as any to thank all the illustrators who've ever worked with us,
yes,
past and present. Okay. Some of them have moved on, and we can fully understand that, and we will forever be eternally grateful for the times they spent working
yep,
on the books. And again, like I said, this artwork really does enhance what our packages are
yep,
all about. So we thank them. And again, hey, please spread the word. Uh, we're still finding new artists. I'm not going to say we're not. It's not a hopeless cause, folks. We're still finding new artists. One gentleman I want to bring up real quick off the top of my head is a very young artist named Jason Wren. Now, Jason signed
yes,
on to do illustrations for a series of mystery short stories by Boston author Robert Ritchie, all
yeah.
right, called the Jaina Mysteries, and
Gina
about a young lady.
Coyle, yeah,
Yeah, Jaina Coyle, right, a young lady. Think of a grown-up Nancy Drew, if you will, this kind of, mystery something Agatha Christie would have done or whatever. And so Jason, word of mouth, knowing somebody, came to us earlier in the year and wanted to work with us. So I assigned him that. He is right now almost completed that first book. I think he just gave us compositions for the 8th illustration.
yeah,
He only has
yeah,
one more to do, and that book is all done. Whereas when he first started working for us, we were getting them on a little quicker bounce, and then he got a job, a really good job, and
Yeah.
dropped us an email immediately and said, hey guys, I'm going to be a little slower now. I've got this job, but I don't want to stop. And we don't have deadlines. If you haven't figured that out yet, Airship 27 is that outfit without deadlines. We assured Jason, no problem. We're happy you got this job more than ever when you can. And so a month goes by. We don't get anything from Jason at all. And then here comes illustration number 7. 2 or 3 weeks go by, and now we've gotten the composite. He's almost done his first book. All right. He's doing it piecemeal. We don't care. We love it. The artwork's beautiful. And Rob, he's already excited about what other book we're going to give him after he wraps up this. So again,
okay, we'll give him another one. It's not a problem.
We'll happily give him another. We work with some of the best artists in the world with the biggest hearts in the world. So thank you all very much. All right.
Yep.
So, hey, what is coming up next? Okay, at present, that's anybody's guess. And at the top of the list, and we've repeated these, and some will be new, so pay attention, loyal airmen. At the top of the list, we actually have 2 novels and now 2 anthologies. For the novels, we have Mark Justice's The Dead Sheriff, Volume 4, called Purity, as written by Michael Housel. Again, this is our keeping alive the weird Western series created by the late writer Mark Justice. Michael Housel's book is very fantastic, and Rob did all the interior illustrations. All we are waiting on now is a cover by very talented artist Michael Youngblood, who again caught up with work and whatever, but he's agreed to do it.
Yep.
And once it comes in, it's been proofread by Fred Adams.
It's ready to go except for that cover.
Right. So once that cover comes in, expect to see Dead Sheriff number 4 coming your way. And I again, you and I have talked about this. I love keeping this series alive because it keeps Mark Justice's legacy alive, and his widow Norma Kay could not be happier. Believe me. All right. So so what comes after that, Rob?
Okay. Then we have Executive Gambit, a modern-day spy thriller by Wayne Carey. The best way to describe this book is that it falls into the Tom Clancy genre, with nefarious secret organizations plotting the downfall of America and its allies, and in the end, only few people aware of their plans can save the day. I did all the artwork for this particular novel, both interior and the cover, which, again, like the book itself, is a little bit different from what we normally do at Airship 27. You'll see what I mean when the book comes out. We think all of you are going to get a big kick out of it. The book is currently being proofread and should be out relatively soon.
Yeah, I would expect this one to turn around quickly. Jay Sweet's doing the proofing, an excellent editor in his own right. Okay, and so once it comes back to Rob, as our process is, Rob will make whatever corrections Jay found in the proof galley, the PDF, and then it goes off to the author, Wayne Carey, to look at one more time, and out it comes. Now, I really don't want to spoil this for anybody, and Rob knows exactly what I'm talking about, and he mentioned it here. Okay. When I read this book, it blew me away. All right. It was, again, I've read a lot of these modern day thrillers. I've read some Clancy and Clive Cussler, Brad Thor, some of the guys who write this, super spy tech, adventures or whatever. The plot for this thing is brilliantly written. It's well laid out. Okay, so you can follow it along. There are clues and mysteries. It's very suspenseful. And again, it was like, I went, you know what? We got to dress this up like a Tom Clancy paperback. And that was what I asked Rob to do. And when he turned in the cover overnight, he sat down. I pulled it up the next morning, and I was almost in tears, so freaking happy with that cover. It is brilliant. Again, a lot of you are going to see this thing and go, "Who put that out?" It's not.
We don't even have our logo on the cover of this one because it would spoil the effect.
Right.
This is without our logo on it, but it's different from anything else that we've done. So I think you are going to wonder who published this.
And that's again, it's part and parcel why we love doing what we do, because any opportunity Rob and I have to shake things up a little bit out of the norm, okay, to get away from the tradition. It's, trust me, even Clancy's and Cusslet, this is still pulp. This is pulp.
Yeah.
All right, but
Oh yeah.
but you will love it.
When I was reading it, what kept coming to my mind was James Bond,
Oh,
the Bourne series of
trilogy, yep, right.
that kind of stuff. It's that kind of a story. So it has that feel to it. So those, if you like that kind of stuff, you'll like this book, because it's right in that genre, right in that wheelhouse.
All right, it is totally okay. So now, after that, we come to the anthologies that I mentioned, the two anthologies that are at the top of the list, production-wise, and the first being Bass Reeves, Frontier Marshal, Volume 4, with stories by Mel Odom, Terry Alexander, Derek Ferguson, and yours truly. Okay, now Rob has already done the cover, and it's a great Western cover. When you see it, you'll love it. It's a typical pulp that you'd have seen on the kiosk back in the 40s. It's a good cowboy cover, all right, and has Bass in a precarious situation. Howard Simpson asked to do the illustrations for this for this book, that is, because his father is a Western fan and is very knowledgeable about Bass Reeves. So it meant something to him to be a part of the project. We
Yep.
gave it to Howard. Howard is working on it, but like our other,
Yeah.
independent illustrators, he's also getting commissions that keep him fed and pay the bills. He's completed several of the illustrations. They look absolutely beautiful. He's doing a great job. This will be worth the wait, people. All right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. And what's the next anthology after
Okay.
this?
Yeah. Also in the works. This should be followed by the Musketeers New Adventures, with two short stories by Paul Beal, Alan Porter, and a novella by Joel Jenkins. Ed Cato has Ed Cato has turned almost half the illustrations in has turned in almost half the illustrations, and they are gorgeous. And we are delighted to finally announce that artist Adam Shaw has taken on the cover assignment. The cover composition is inspired by an old musketeer drawing by the late comic book artist Gene Day and Ron Sutton. When we saw it, we asked Ron's permission to show it to Adam, and he agreed immediately. We think when it's done, it's going to be really a fantastic cover and a
Yep.
fantastic book.
Yep, yep, all on the line. Ed's really working like crazy getting those
Yeah.
illustrations and interiors, and they are beautiful. They're just gorgeous. Ed's been a treasure to us, and I hope he's watching this. I hope he's watching this podcast. I
Yeah.
think he does. Ed's been a treasure to us ever since he signed on to do interiors for us. His stuff is magnificent, and it enhances every single project he's done with us. What happened with me was we had Ed doing this. And I had given some thought to asking Adam Shaw to take on the cover, but at the same time, I wanted to give him an idea for the composition, and I didn't have one, Rob. So I'm scrolling through Facebook, and I see this musketeer drawing, right? And Ron Sutton had posted it and said, he said, I was rummaging through my files, he says, and I found this old sketch that Gene Day had done and sent to me to ink. And of course, Gene just passed away a long time ago. He's another one of our Canadian friends. When I mentioned Charles Saunders the other day, and man, it's really sad, because when we were in Canada visiting Charles, we went to visit Gene as well. All right, and now all these compatriots are gone, but Gene was a rising star at Marvel when he got there. Deadly Hands of Kung Fu.
I was going to say, I thought that's what he was working on.
And he was involved with other projects.
Kicking it.
His dream was to get on to Indiana Jones and blah blah blah, and he had a bad ticker, and he worked himself to death pretty much. He died of a massive heart attack one morning.
Yeah,
and so
it's easy to do.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
to work that hard, yeah, okay, without sleep, just Yep.
Yep.
Trying to make deadlines and whatever. Someday somebody's gonna write a book about the pressures of being a freelance artist, okay, and making a living from it. It's not all bells and whistles, boys and girls. Let me tell you. All
No,
right.
it
I
is
know
no
some.
picnic.
Oh, a friend of ours, whose name I won't mention, uh, got into the business about the same time I did, from Texas, and lasted, I think, maybe a year and a half at DC, and had a nervous breakdown and had to
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's sometimes very cutthroat. Anyways, so here's this picture that Ron Sutton felt compelled to post, and it's a musketeer picture. It's an action musket, and I looked at it and I went, "Oh yeah, okay, that's what we want." So I wrote to Ron. I messaged Ron, explained to him what we were doing with Musketeers New Adventures, and asked him if we could, show what he had done. That I could copy that drawing and show it to Adam, with the intention. And please understand, we've mentioned this before. Adam isn't doing a copy of that image. He's
No.
he's used it to inspire his own image.
Right.
All right. So
He's real good at that. There have been many times I've put together. Ron will have an idea for a cover, or I'll have an idea for a cover, and we put together. I find pieces on the internet and put them together in Photoshop to kind of illustrate what we want. And
Yep.
some artists go, "Well, I don't want to do that exactly." And I'm going, "We're not asking you to do it exactly. This is supposed to inspire, or this, you can use this as your inspiration for what you're going to do with this." And Adam is just the last cover he did for what, Ravenwood.
Ravenwood with the
Yeah,
globe, the gypsy looking
I,
at the
he
fortune
just
telling
knocked
globe.
that out of the park. The original piece that I did is only slightly like what he finished
Right,
doing.
right, right.
It's just
Yeah,
incredible.
you put elements together, and I had images in my head. And then when we saw Adam's finished piece, went, "Oh my God, this is beyond anything you and
That's
I
it.
envisioned." It's
Yeah.
People are still talking about that cover, and
Yeah.
Adam's the guy to do it. So as of, I think, a little over a week ago, Adam sent us a really rough pencil sketch, again
Yeah.
inspired by the piece, but
Yeah.
not. And you're
It's
gonna love
different.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, you're really gonna like this. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Rob. So then we go after that.
Yeah.
We've several really interesting books coming down the road. One is a fantasy Conan-like adventure by Mike Bullock, with artist Chris Nye doing the interior illustrations. That's called Rune Master, and that should come out. That should come out pretty well. It'll come together quick within the next few months,
Depends on how
because
quickly Chris can get
yeah,
his stuff turned
yeah,
around.
and Chris is very dependable. The only fly in that ointment is Chris's schedule for some cataract surgery in the not
Yeah.
too distant future, and it may put this on the back burner for a while. But you know what? Mike Bullock has seen the first two illustrations he turned in, and I'm sure Mike's not going to have any problems waiting for Chris to heal.
Yeah. He's probably going, "Take your time."
So
Yeah.
thank you, Chris.
Bring
Thank
it
you, Mike,
on.
for
Bring it
sending
on.
us a really, really great book. All right. And
Mm.
then again, after that, or around that time, okay, a book we talked about last podcast, at Lent, was George Takei's historical thriller, The Great Chicago Fire Conspiracy. That's the one that suggests that the Lincoln assassin, John Wilkes Booth, was actually responsible for the Great Chicago Fire. Now, that's still hanging in limbo. We have no set artist for either interiors, but we do have a cover artist in the works. I got a hold of another really talented creator for us, Chris Rodding. And I had approached Chris a few weeks back about possibly doing the Dead Sheriff cover for us, because he had done the last one, Volume 3. Chris got back to me and said, "Oh, bad timing, because I'm really caught up in all these other projects, and I couldn't get it to you for another month and a half, or whatever." And so, in hindsight and reflection of that, I kept thinking, well, we're not that far off from completing Dead Sheriff, because Rob had done the illustrations. We just needed the cover. And so I thanked Chris, said, "Don't worry about it. We'll hook up with you in a couple months to see where your schedule is." In the interim between all of this and last month's podcast, et cetera, I finished reading and editing The Great Chicago fire conspiracy. And suddenly it dawns on me, it's probably going to take me a month, 2 months, maybe more to find an interior illustrator. Okay. So if that's happening, why can't I have Chris doing the cover? And so I wrote Chris, and of course, one of the things that Rob knows I do is I try to tease people with how unique a project is. And so that was the hook
Yeah.
with Chris. I wrote and said, hey, we're doing this book, and I explained the plot to him. I said, so basically, I said, there was never, ever a photograph taken during that conflagration, that horrible, fiery Holocaust. All right. Not one single picture. There are a lot of post pictures. So I says, Chris,
Yeah.
this is my request of you. My challenge to you as an artist. Give me a cover that takes place in the middle of the worst street with flames all around it. People scrambling for their lives, like these multi-million-dollar horror movies Hollywood make, these disaster movies, Irwin Allen production, and that was my. He got back to me and went, "Whoa!" He goes, "All right." Now, he goes, he said, "I'm all right. I'm starting to get some. Yeah. Oh, Reds would be. Yeah. Okay. I'll do it. I'll do it." So I have no idea what Chris is going to give us. All right.
You hooked him. You hooked him. You set the hook, as my dad would say.
Such a good artist, and really, the more frantic he can make that cover, the more it's going to work for us as to the theme and what it's about. So okay, so that's some of the stuff that we've got in production. That's some of the stuff that's some close to being finished, maybe a month away from being finished. Recently, Rob and I talked, and I've got Rob now actually working on the next Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
Yep.
This will be volume number
16.
Okay.
Yep.
And at the same time, I'm going to give all of you a little tease. Hopefully sometimes next year when he can free up his schedule, one of the finest artists that Rob and I know, and a personal friend of both of us, Mark Wheatley, has agreed to do a Sherlock Holmes cover for us in the future. That was the way we left it, because Mark is always busy. Okay. He's always in demand, as he should be. But he loved the idea of doing Sherlock Holmes. He's done them before. And so hopefully sometimes next year, I can't tell you what volume it'll be on. I told Mark, take your time when you turn it in. We keep doing the books anyways. So when Mark's cover comes in, we'll slap it on the next collection that's due out at that time. So again, we've got a Mark Wheatley cover in our future. I could not be happier. And that's it. That's pretty much our agenda for this month. And we've got questions. We've actually got questions.
Hopefully we have answers too.
2 of them that are excellent.
Yeah.
They really are. Rob, why don't you tackle the first one?
Okay. The first one is from Ed Cato. And he says, what is a good starting point for new fans? And I'm taking it that he means of New Pulp.
Right.
And my suggestion would be Legends of New Pulp is a good one, because it's got, it's chock full of great stories and illustrations. Giant size. However, if you're not looking for a book that doubles as a doorstop, there are a bunch of other different places to start. Yeah, that thing is huge. Turn it to its side. Show us the back. Oh, look at that. Look at how. Yeah, we had a blast doing this, but boy, I call it a doorstop. So
we get 860. So it's like, wow.
700 and something pages.
Yeah, right. 700.
Amazon could
775 pages.
Yeah. Anything over 116 pages they can't do.
Airship 27 comics.
My computer just announced something there, but we'll move on. So anyway, for old-fashioned pulp-style hero and anti-hero books from Airship 27, I'd recommend, and Ron doesn't know I'm doing this, the Captain Hazard or the Brother Bones books by our own Captain Ron. I have to profess I am not as up-to-date on other publishers beyond the Domino Lady stuff from Moonstone, though I'm betting Ron's got some ideas here, and I'll toss it to him.
Okie doke. Well, thank you. I'm thanks. I'm very grateful for you for mentioning those. And yeah,
Well, it's the Shadow and
Doc
Doc
Savage.
Savage. Those are our homages to those two characters.
Right,
So yeah,
classic pulp characters. Okay,
yeah.
so another book, we did Legends of New Pulp, a few years back, and uh, it was a fun kind of thing for a friend of ours who was sick, and so we put it together, and the new pulp community came together in big numbers to help us put it together. Okay. Well, Rob and I recently flipped this around. Okay. And the second book that I would recommend, aside from Legends of New Pulp Fiction, is
Who's
Who's
Who?
Who in New Pulp. Okay.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, the big omnibus is a collection of great stories. All right. And there are little bios, they're short bios of the 65 writers who wrote those stories. And you might want to go to Amazon, punch their names in, and see if you can find some of them per the stories that you enjoyed. All right. Whereas this gives you 222 of today's top writers and artists in New Pulp. All right. So again, this is available also from Amazon, just like Legends was at the same time. Those are two avenues. And there is one left that our dear friend Derek Ferguson, a writer from New York,
Okay.
does. He publishes what he can a list. Okay, it's subjective to Derek,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's called the 100 new pulps you should read. All right,
Yes.
to get
Yep.
into the business. So
Right.
answer your question is okay. So what I'm going to do, Rob, is I'm going to go find a link to that post on
And I'll
Derek's
put it
site.
in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll put it in the
put it
show
in the
notes.
comments under the YouTube channel for that
Right.
thing. So there you go, Ed. Those are three, I think, really solid ways for people to become familiar with what new pulp is and an entry into new pulp for them. All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So again, thanks, Ed, for the questions. Really solid
Yes.
question. Now, our second one, again, is worthwhile. Uh, I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but boy, Rob, this one nails you. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Because
I think
as our
Mr.
director,
Bryant's a
right?
good buddy of mine, and he probably was thinking of me when he came up with this question.
All right.
He
So we
at a
go.
convention a few years ago and really hit it off. But yeah, from Brian, we
Brian
talked about
K.
the.
Morris. All
You want
right.
to read it?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I'll read it
All
off.
right.
I'll say a few things, but then I'll let you have it. All
Okay.
right. All right. So this is what Brian asked. We talk about the writing styles of new pulp, but what qualities would give a cover the new pulp flavor? Okay, well, look, I mean, first of all, let's be logical here, all right? I'll just like the writing, what makes new pulp, a continuation, an extension of the classic pulps? And then we list all these kind of iconic tropes that have to be a part of that fiction, all right? Well, I absolutely love the artwork from the classic pulp magazines of the 30s and 40s. All right, and you go online on any site. I mean, right now I've got a Pinterest account, and
Oh yeah.
I think I've got something like 200 old pulp characters on that raw covers. All right,
Yeah.
everything from Dime Mystery to Terror Tales to again the Mask Avengers, the Shadow, or Jungle Stories or whatever. All right, but is there a theme that or an element that is required in a pulp cover? My initial thought as a fan, and I'm going to let you go as the artist here, okay, is it better be colorful. All right, it better be super colorful. Do
Right.
not give me pastels or boring colors. It better have some kind of action on the cover,
Yep.
depict some dramatic sequence, whether horror elements or gangbusters shooting Tommy guns, or our hero about to get pushed off a cliff. And then the design elements the same way. They have to pop.
Yep.
Your logo and your character have to pop. And the reasoning for this is because during the heyday of the pulps, every single week, 50 to 100 new issues of different magazines would come out, all crowding the same kiosk. So if you wanted your magazine to stand out, those are the tropes I think you needed to have there to stand a chance at all. So your thoughts, buddy?
Well, mine aren't too far from that. I wrote down something here that I'll read. When designing a cover, I look at pulp era covers for inspiration. There's always some sort of action going on, as Ron mentioned. Guns blazing, innocence in peril or distress, or the heroines confronting a villain. Either the villain's either on camera or off. Bright colors or lots of contrast are good, as it mirrors the effect pulp publishers were attempting to tempt Depression-era men, mostly men, though there were pulps for women too, to put down their hard-earned money for a magazine. Of course, in those days, at times, a little T&A was necessary, and we sometimes do that ourselves. The real trick is to have the cover get potential readers to wonder what's in the pages behind that cover. That worked back in the heyday of the pulps, and it works today. You got to do something that grabs the eye, and that's those bright colors and the high contrast, and then have it be something interesting and go, wow, what the heck is that all about? So that you'll pick up the book, look inside, and get hooked by whatever you might read a line or two out of the book and go, hey, that's pretty good. I'm taking that home. So that's what it takes to make a good pulp.
I'm always and I'm always blown away by the fact that I've mentioned this on previous shows in the past. I have maybe 2 or 3 of these big coffee table books of reprinted pulp covers. The fact, right, and
that's why I was rummaging here. I used to have one right here on the work table next to me, but I actually put it back on the bookshelf.
Well, I mean, right, and the thing about those was the tragedy is that at the time the art was considered throwaway art, just like the stories were. They were considered populist fare, and once you were done, you just threw the magazine away. Well, once you were done, you threw away the script and you threw away the artwork. So I can remember reading an intro to one of these coffee tables that I have, and I believe I think the average is like 80%, Rob, of all the great covers, paintings now, oils, acrylics done during the heyday were trashed. Filled dumpsters.
They threw them in the dumpster.
They threw them away. It breaks my heart. It tears me to shreds. All right. And I think one of the things we should note with this, because I'm sure our good friend Bob Dice will appreciate the shout out here. All right, is that whole idea of energetic illustrating and covers that Rob so beautifully defined. All right, actually evolved with the pulps into the post-war World War II men's magazines,
right?
So that you saw all that same in-your-face action on all those covers.
Weasels ripped my flesh,
right? The scantily clad damsel and the bold lettering and everything. That was all from the original classic pulp covers. They just continue it throughout the age of the MAMs, and it was a big part of why they were a success for as long as they were as well. So there you go. Hey, Brian, thanks a lot, buddy.
Good question. Yeah.
It's fun for us. It puts me and Rob, on our toes a little bit to basically look at the stuff that we actually love and maybe hopefully share some of the knowledge that we've learned over the last 10 years.
Anybody else out there that's got any questions like that you'd like to have us answer? Think of something fun to ask us about, and we'll be happy to answer it.
Amen. Yep. Amen. Okay, so we come to the part about anything else, and I'm going to surprise Rob now because I want to talk about a couple of comics, but one in particular that my buddy here just released, and there is issue number 1 of Twilight Grim from Rob and writer R.A. Jones from Silverline Comics. It's a great story, great comic. The art is phenomenal. The coloring, spot on, Rob. Okay.
Nice work. The colors did a nice work on that. Yeah.
And it's about a world where vampires exist, but they're separated from a world where humans and non-infected people live. And there's this hierarchy in both camps.
Yeah.
And Twilight Grim is this battling guy for good and justice who traverses both these worlds. And
Yes.
number one is a very, very quick teaser. It's got tons of action, but believe me, it does what a comic book should do, makes you want to get that second issue and find out what the hell is going on here. All right.
Yeah.
So bravo. And then the other comic that I really need to share. This came in the mail this afternoon, Rob. You know our old buddy Warren Montgomery.
Yeah.
Warren Montgomery from Portland, Oregon. He's been helping us out in the past. Warren started lettering comics a while back, and a lot of the things we were doing for Redbud Studios, we needed lettering for, like Black Lion and other things. And so we went to Warren, and Warren jumped on. Warren taught himself comic book lettering. He taught himself coloring, and over the last few years started his own company called Will Lil Comics. And ultimately, after doing 15 issues of an anthology, he had created his own superhero, a comedy superhero, Rob, much I do with Mr. Jigsaw, right? And called him, he's the Black Lightning Marvel. And this is
stupid issue.
This is Rob, it is awesome. It is absolutely awesome. I am reading this thing, and memories of when Gary Cato and I created Mr. Jigsaw 30 years ago. Okay? I mean, again, I think a lot of people miss the fun in comics. All right.
Yeah.
And Warren nails it. Warren absolutely nails it. Okay. He's not writing angst. He's not writing anything great. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's trying to write a funny book. All right. And it works. So Warren, my good friend, thumbs up. He doesn't know I'm doing this shout out.
Comics need more of that, really. Comic books need a lot more of that.
We totally do. So there you go.
We've forgotten the fun in comics.
Yeah. Well, and independents are going to bring them back. I totally believe that. So, Rob, anything else that we should be discussing?
I don't have anything except for the first time since the pandemic hit, I'm actually going to be doing some driving for the local college that I drive bus for. So everybody, keep your fingers crossed for me this weekend, because I have no idea what we're up against here. This will be the first time I've actually done quote unquote real work since this all hit. What makes me worry is the fact that when I leave like this, that's when these 2 books that we're waiting on to be assembled and sent out, they're going to come this weekend.
Of course they are.
Yeah, they're going to come this weekend. So I'm taking my laptop with me, and while I'm waiting for this group, I will assemble those and put them up, or I'll be ready to do that in case they do come in, because I swear that's what's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
The pieces will come in, and I'll have to assemble them.
It's like the phone always rings the second you step into the shower.
That's it. Yep.
Hey, just be safe out there, buddy.
Yeah. You get taking the mask, taking the hand sanitizer, and gonna wash my hands and take care of the these are women bowlers. It's lady bowlers for this local college. It's a lot of fun. I didn't know this sort of thing went on, and it's a whole different. It's not like league play. It's a completely. I don't know all the details, or I'd probably regale everyone with them. But it's completely different from league play. So, the ladies are a lot of fun. They're very serious about what they're doing. So we'll see how it goes. So everybody, keep good thoughts that all of us stay healthy and we don't run into any problems.
Have a good trip.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, and I'm doing the same stuff I've been doing. You're going to keep doing, trying to get stuff out here. I just found out recently from my Australian publisher of that Dracula story that I had written that he wanted some tweaks and some very smart editorial thoughts on the final script. He loved the script, but there wasn't enough of a connection to the classic Dracula. Okay. Now, the caveat is that this is an alternate world. Each writer does a different type of Dracula, but mine was so out there, and I mean out there, and I'm not going to spoil it for people, but Chris, the editor, Chris Segura, said, is there any way you can somehow, without changing the tone or mood of what you've written? So I put my thinking cap on for a while, and it came up with an idea that worked in the story, Rob, but at the same time brought Transylvania into it. All right.
Okay.
The minute we had Transylvania, it gave me a couple little elements and even a quote. And I'm going to give the quote away here, but people are going to have to figure out what the heck I wrote. And the quote is the family motto. All right. The stories are in the blood. Okay, so there you go. Right. Hopefully
that's a heck of a teaser.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
So anyways,
folks,
Chris,
I don't know what he's talking about either, but that sounds really interesting.
Okay. So Chris was very happy with the rewrite I gave him. It's a done deal. I'm not expecting to see the published book until early next year. They've added more writers. It's going to be an even thicker book than the Holmes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Cool.
But the tentative title is Dracula Unfanged, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for a lot of people. So that's it. We're done with the show primarily. Time for Rob's bad joke, and then we'll wrap it up with one final agenda. So
okay. So here we go. Let me scroll this up where I can read it a little better. All right. Appropriate. Two gray-haired old men are sitting on a bench at the park. A young, smoking hot girl runs past in a sports bra and a tiny pair of shorts. One of the men smiles, and this brings the girl over. Why are you staring at me and grinning, you pervert? She says. The old man sweetly replies, my dear, I'm not smiling at you. I'm smiling at the thought that no matter how bad the world gets, there will always be young, pretty girls in the summer to cheer up a lonely old man. And the girl replies, aw, you sweet old man. She leans in and gives him a kiss on the cheek and then jogs on. The old man grins, turns to his friend and says, 3 to zip, Mugly. Your turn. Three to zip, Mugly. Your turn.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, look, okay. It reminds me of the old adage, just because there's snow on the roof doesn't mean there's no fire in the fireplace.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So there you go. Bad jokes and all. Hey, we're gonna get a little bit serious. One final time for this episode, because we'd like to ask all of you watching this to maybe take a few seconds of your time after you've watched it to give some thought to our good buddy, all right, Jamie Ramos, who has been having a real rough go of it the last few years. Jamie is diabetic and has failing kidneys, and he's been on dialysis for a while. He was in the hospital about a month ago. I think he had some surgeries, and they did all they could for him, sent him home. And his diabetes has caused the circulation in his right leg to pretty much stop altogether. And so in an effort to save his life, he is back in the hospital, and the chances are they're going to amputate the right leg, within the next few days or whatever. Jamie's a young man. He's not an old guy. He's married. He's got a wonderful son, and all the world to live for. Okay. I mean, Rob and I talk about COVID-19 and all the stuff that we're going through. Okay. But when you look at people like Jamie and the suffering they do and the things they endure, and he endures it with such a great attitude, with such an undistinguished spirit of will. Okay. He never loses a sense of humor. He just fights on for the people he loves. And in doing so becomes a great inspiration to every one of us. So Jamie, if you hear about this podcast or you get a chance to see it, we absolutely love you, buddy. You're a brother. We're pulling for you 100%. If anybody can beat this and survive, it's you.
Hang in there.
Hang in there, Jamie.
Hang in there.
And so that's it, loyal airmen. We thank you again for taking an hour of your life, which, as Rob will tell you, you are never, ever getting back.
Yep. Well, we've come to the end of another hour that you'll never get back, loyal airmen. We hope you'll stay healthy, stay safe, and join us again next month. This is your Chief Engineer, Rob Davis, signing off.
And as ever, I have the fun and the good humor and pleasure of saying, down ship.
Come and ride around Jesus. Come and spin around. So and so and where will he be?